Hello and welcome to the 21st 2020 NHL Draft recap here at Scouching. Today we're going to be looking at the LA Kings draft crop, and the LA Kings have just been absolutely knocking it out of the park year after year in the NHL Draft, at least in my eyes. Leading the way at second overall, they just picked the best player left on the board and took Quinton Byfield. I don't care what anyone says. He is the second best player in this year's draft right now, and he could develop into the best player in this year's draft in my view. He's huge, but he can skate. His skill is remarkable. His playmaking vision is exceptional. I really like everything that Byfield brings to the game. The suit he wore on draft night was also spectacular. So I am a huge fan of this guy. I think he's going to fit in great in an LA Kings jersey, and I'm extremely thrilled that through all of the rumors about the fact that he was going to slip in the draft a little bit, he ends up going second just like he should. I don't really know what else I can say, but Kings fans, you got a really good player there. And then at 35th overall, the LA Kings just let everyone else make the mistake of not drafting Helge Grans and taking him at 35th. I didn't think Helge Grans was quite enough of a pick to be worth picking in, say, the top 20 this year, but anywhere past that range, I could easily be convinced to take him, especially at the 35th overall pick. He's a really strong skating, right-handed, puck-moving defenseman. He takes care of the puck really effectively. He moves it up the ice with control really well, and from time to time, I think a big step in his game will just be taking a split second to read the ice a little bit better and get a better bearing of what's going on the ice around him before he makes a puck touch in the offensive zone especially. He's a solid defense-first player who can quarterback a power play and produce on a power play as well, and I think for the LA Kings to add Helge Grans to their absolutely massive prospect cupboard is just another really rock-solid add, so I like this pick. I think he's going to be a good minutes eater in the NHL, and at 35th overall, this is a no-brainer. At 45th overall, they took Brock Faber, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Brock Faber this year, but you're betting on his skating just like some other teams have bet on other defensemen here. Brock Faber is a very good skating defenseman with great breakout ability and really solid transition talent, both offensively and defensively. He kind of reminded me of like a miniature version of Jake Sanderson. I don't mind this pick here. Probably wouldn't have been the guy that I went for, but I know there are people out there who really like Brock Faber's potential. I might not be one of those people, but considering how good of a skater he is and the results that he put up, I don't really mind this pick at all for the LA Kings. At 66th overall, the LA Kings took Kasper Simon Taivall, and I have tracked Simon Taivall all year long. I made a video report on him, and I couldn't believe he was available at 66th. The more I watched Simon Taivall, the more skeptical I got about his projection, and in my experience, players that tend to give me that impression are the ones that slip in the draft a little bit. But I did not think Simon Taivall would slip all the way to 66th overall. He is a ton of fun to watch. Great skill, great playmaking ability. He has a really good ability to attack the net as well that I wish would come out more often. And I think you can buy this player low and wait and see what happens as he develops. He's going to need to get stronger. He's going to need to take care of the puck a little bit more and play a little bit more selflessly for my viewings if he's going to be as effective as he can be. But this is a really talented, raw player that you can watch develop for a few years. And if you whiff at 66th overall on a player as talented as Simon Taivall, that's not the end of the world. I loved this pick at 66 for LA. At 83rd, they drafted Alex Laferriere, not Alexis Lafreniere. But to me, it is very funny that the LA Kings could have an NHL roster with Quinton Byfield and Alex Laferriere on the same team. But jokes aside, I've seen Alex Laferriere play a little bit over the course of this season and was never particularly blown away. I think he's got good power forward potential. He's got some good skill for a big guy. He skates pretty well, he works hard, he's good around the net, and he's got some good finishing ability. I still don't think it's enough to warrant a pick at 83, but I wouldn't be too upset if people really were pushing for him in that slot. I think he's a well-rounded power forward that has some decent potential with the tools that he has, but I look at some names that went immediately after him off the board, like Maxim Groshev or Zayd Wisdom, and see a little bit more of the things that I like to see out of players like this. Or if you wanted to take a really big swing, Dylan Peterson went off the board soon after. So I think there were some better options on the board for the LA Kings, but I'm not too cut up about this based on what I've seen of Laferriere. We'll have to wait to see, and I think he's a few years away, but I trust the LA Kings' judgment on this considering how well they've done in the draft in recent years. At 112th, they drafted goaltender Yuho Markanon, the son of Jussi Markkanen of former Edmonton Oilers fame. And he's a goalie, his dad was a goalie, I don't really know what to expect, you know the drill by now. We'll see what happens. Then at 128, the LA Kings drafted Martin Chromiak, and the more I saw of Chromiak, the more I just had questions. I really don't know how his game projects. I always came away thinking that Shane Wright and Zayd Wisdom were two players that really drove the bus for that line, and Chromiak was just the finisher. I think Chromiak has a great shot, decent skill, he has an okay ability to finish, but he's more of a guy that shoots from everywhere. His motor all around the ice just seems quite low, and I think in a very specific role he could have a job with the LA Kings, but I'm not sure how projectable that role is considering that's the role he's basically playing in the OHL. He's parked high in the defensive zone so he doesn't have to back check a whole lot. Defensemen or Shane Wright get him the puck. They build speed in transition, and he finds those players in transition so they can continue the play and he finds those players in transition so he can continue the play offensively where he's the trailing forward and can finish the play that the other players set up for him. I think Martin Chromiak has a lot of work to do in a multitude of different areas in order to be worth a draft pick at all to me, but I think that the potential is there, especially at 128. You take the swing and see what happens, and if you whiff, that's unfortunate, and I think Chromiak has a lot of room to grow. But this is a guy that I soured on more and more over the course of the year. At 140th, they drafted Ben Meehan, and I've seen Ben Meehan play a little bit on the recommendation of JD Burke over at Elite Prospects, and I like his skill. I think there's a really clever and creative offensive defenseman here with his skill. He was undrafted last year. I think there are some question marks with regards to his overall two-way impact on the game, but at 140th overall, with the raw talent that he shows, I don't see how you can be too upset with this pick. He only played 25 games this season and produced very well in those games, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I've really liked what he does in short spurts on the ice, so I'm curious to see what happens here. It's an interesting flyer to take for the LA Kings, and I think he's an interesting pickup for them. Finally, at 190th, they drafted under-18 Finnish scoring wizard Otto Johnson. And I've seen Otto Johnson play since the draft was done, and I almost had him on my watch list at the end of the year. But in the games that I saw that he was at the under 20 level last year, I just didn't see enough of him that really warranted putting him on the list. And I figure he'd go undrafted and we'd see him again in 2021. But I think the LA Kings saw him at the torrid scoring pace he started this season with and said, let's not just wait until next year and draft him now at 190. Because he does show really good scoring instincts and offensive ability. I think he's an interesting flyer to take at 190 considering how much he scored at the under 18 level last year. I didn't see enough to really put him on my board, but he is a legitimate prospect and I think could be an interesting swing to take at 190. But he's hit the ground running at the under 20 level this year, and that's really all you can hope for with your 7th round picks out of a junior league in Finland. So for the LA Kings, I'm going to give them a 1C. I really think the LA Kings did a great job. They didn't overthink it and took Byfield at 2. That is a franchise cornerstone to me. Helge Grans and Brock Faber were really good defensive pickups in the 2nd round to me. Casper Simon Taivall and Alex Laferriere in the 3rd round. Really solid potential auxiliary offensive pieces for that team. You've got Markanon, who, whatever, he's a goalie. You got Martin Chromiak, who I think, if he figures out a lot of different areas of the game over the next few years, could be an interesting pickup. But Ben Meehan and Otto Johnson are good late round flyers to take a swing on. So I'm curious to see how this crop turns out for the Kings over the next few years. But in my view, I think it's another strong year for LA fans. So that's it for this draft recap. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you can click all the buttons you see below me so you never miss another one. If you really liked it, you could subscribe on Patreon or down below here on YouTube by clicking join. You'll get access to videos early, you'll get access to a Discord server, as well as data sheets for drafted and undrafted prospects, and plenty of other goodies. Or you can pick up some merchandise from the Scouchwear shop, where 50% of all profits go to the Women's Sports Foundation. So that's all, and we'll see you in the next one where we look at the Calgary Flames.